Jason Campbell. I play in a band called Obsidian. Do lots of things. I record, produce, engineer, edit. I'll make posters. Do a little bit of everything. A whole lot of everything, and try to do less as possible in some respects because you can only do so much. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean that I get so busy with everything. I was just explaining to a friend of mine last night at a show that I probably can go some days from I'll get up in the morning, do an hour or two of promo before I go to work, do my day job, come home. From the time I get home to the time I go to bed, I'm doing music, doing something, whether it's for my band, a show, other friends' stuff, mixing, editing albums, whatnot. So yeah, I do a lot of things. That's a kind of a trick question, I guess, because I mean, some of it, I mean, like punk, metal, hardcore, even rock kind of can cross over. I mean, yeah, when you start getting into your jazzes and classicals and a few other things, and your dance musics, that gets a little outside. But I think it as the Vancouver, let's say, hard rock, metal, punk scene, I've been involved for a long time, doing all ages shows, doing bigger shows, and then kind of a little bit of everything in between. Vancouver's gone through many ebbs and flows of good and bad. I've seen a lot of good, I've seen a lot of bad, and I think we're currently on I don't know if it's a good swing or an upswing. We've got a really great amount of bands right now. Like just last night, I mean, you were there, where there was Truant, there was Galactic Pegasus, Apollyon came from Kelowna. I'm trying to remember all the bands, Exterminatus, Blackwater Burial. There was like 8 bands, and I can't remember the other couple that were there off the top of my head. But there's a lot of great bands that are performing in Vancouver and getting out of town. You got your neck of the woods, your bigger bands like Archspire, Unleash the Archers. And I mean, Revenger just did a tour in Mexico. Saints of Death with West of Hell also did a tour in Mexico. So there's bands that are playing Vancouver and getting out into other countries. And so it's a really good. I think it's a really good environment right now. But yeah, we've had some bad times where on a good end, 10 and 20, 25 people was a good show. And people would be excited for that. Now I would say our probably average is well over 100 on most good shows. Is going to be over 100 or 200 on a local show, just a local only show. So I think we're at a good point right now. But I think like any time, we're kind of a fragile. And I don't mean that in sort of like the political terms, but I just mean at any point people could wane and not want to go to shows anymore. That is a loaded question. I really think it depends on the area. We were just talking about this before we started this, and in times past, that was the case where the venue supplied the building and also the crowd, and sometimes the band would bring a crowd with them because they were from out of town, or they were a much larger band in town. It really depends, because I mean, a band like Archspire, Neck of the Woods, Unleash the Archers, they're probably going to be doing anywhere from a good 150 to almost 500. Depending on the show, depending on the night, all those factors, what tour they're on. I've seen Archspire and Unleash the Archers at the Red Room absolutely packed. It was a great show. That was years and years ago. And this is Archspire's first album, right? And it was a great show, but it could have been fuller, right? And now that show would probably those two bands would sell the rickshaw right out if they were to do a show like that. But it's a hard place, because I don't think necessarily a venue, unless it's doing dance music, has a built-in crowd these days. I think they have a built-in regulars, which maybe is a limited number of people. So I don't think you're going to get a regular 200 people that just go to that venue because they're going to that venue these days. I don't know if that will change. I think there's definitely some different things that we can do as the overall scene, whether that's promoters, venues, and bands. I think there is some different things that we can do to approach things and maybe bring people out. I don't think it's necessarily the better band. What it comes down to is and it is funny because I was actually thinking of this very topic today. Why does band X draw when they're maybe not great musicians or maybe have averagey songs, and then you have another band who's technically proficient, very, very good? The problem is that we miss, as musicians, we miss the perception of what people that are standing in the crowd see. We will go, that's lame. Why are they doing that? And people go nuts for whatever that lame thing is that we think is lame because they're doing something, right? They're making, whether they're making a focus upon themselves or being goofy or whatever it is, and then somebody else puts their hackles up and like, I'm not going to do that. And that's why they don't succeed, is because it's not the technical proficiency, it's they're not willing to let go of certain things because it's ego, whether it's a pride in. I'm not saying don't be as best as you can, because we do that all the time. We try to up our level of our next song that we write, the next album that we do, the next show we do. We're our band. We are our worst critics, right? We're like, yeah, that show wasn't very good, but we have people come up and say, that was amazing. You guys are so great, and it's like, oh, I felt like absolute garbage, but thank you. So you have to find that middle ground of entertaining and being the best that you can be. Because if it was all just about great musicianship, all the great musicians in this scene would just literally float to the top. Because there's a band, I'm not going to name the name, that plays in this in the scene here, who's technically absolutely flawless. They don't necessarily have a really good draw, and they're good friends of mine, and I love those guys, but it's a different form of music, right? Maybe it's not palatable. Maybe it's the populace that want to listen to metal. They'll go, I'd rather listen to something that sounds like Iron Maiden rather than something that sounds like Tech Death. And that's nothing against Tech Death. I like it, but there are people that look at that and go, that's a little too far outside of my comfort zone. And I'm not saying we need to bring them in to that and go, you need to get into that comfort zone but it's more of, they don't like it and they might not ever like it, and it has nothing to do with musicianship. It's about what they get entertained by. And that's why maybe the band that's out of tune, maybe the band that's doesn't play technically proficient, people will jump all over that. Maybe it's because they can relate to that. Oh, hey, they're not quite as good. Maybe I would be, if I got up on stage, I'd be more like that guy. I don't know. You know, it's I've been playing music since I was a little kid, so I don't know what the non-musician mind is like, other than my friends that I talk to who actually, oddly enough, a friend of mine messaged me from the show on Friday from the rickshaw, and he's like, oh my God, you guys are opening up for Flesh God Apocalypse and Hypocrisy. I'm like, yeah. He's like, what? Well, he's freaking out, and he's texting me, right? And he's just going nuts. And I'm like, yeah, it's cool. I'll have tickets if you want to go. He's like, save me a bunch of tickets. That's insane. You know, he's freaking out. And so, again, there's a perception thing of how people see things, I guess, is maybe what it is. I don't know. It's a really long, drawn-out answer, but this is something I think all musicians struggle with, in the sense of, why aren't we more popular? Plain and simple. Why aren't we more popular? We're a great band. Maybe you are. Honestly, maybe you're not. I don't know. I mean, and it comes down to people's perception, I think, more than anything, and what they like. There are places to play, but it's, you know, again, this is probably a multifaceted thing that's just not as simple as places are closing down. What do we do? I remember we couldn't get shows when we were kids. So we would do our own shows. We would put shows on. We would do halls. We would rent a hall. We would, save up money for the summer, rent a hall, or we ended up having some friends that would run events at the Civic Center where I would live. And so we would do shows there, and we would, there's always answers. I think it comes down to some degree, are you willing to work for it? Are the people willing to go to those particular places? And I think that's maybe was a struggle with not the reason why Surrey has closed down at the Flamingo, but I think why a lot of people weren't going to that venue because it was in Surrey. Surrey had its heyday years and years and years ago where people would go to Surrey even from Vancouver, or maybe more metalheads and rock people lived in Surrey, so they actually would be like, oh yeah, we're at 5-minute drive. It's like people live in Vancouver. Like, they're not going to go outside of Vancouver to go see a show, and maybe unless it's maybe Armstrong or something like that where we're going to a big event. So it is tough. So I mean, a little bit of it is that, like we were talking off camera, was you got to play these places. You've got to do some certain things that will bring people to those venues. And, like we were saying, like, you go to a bigger show and there's 1,000 or 20,000 people. Where are those people the rest of the time of the year? I think part of it is the ticket price for those shows is too expensive. The shirts and merch is too expensive. So they'll spend $300 or $600 for that one time for the year, and they'll go see their Metallica or their Iron Maiden or their whoever, and they'll get a hotel, maybe a limo. They'll buy all the merch. They'll buy the expensive tickets, and then they don't go do anything else because they've saved up the year for that one thing. Might be an explanation. I know people that do that, so I mean that I think that is a valid reason. But a $10 show, $15 show, I don't know how people can't afford it. And I'm not coming down on people that don't come, but it's more of the talent's there, the bands are good. I don't know why people aren't coming to shows. I'd love to see more people, and that's always been my goal, is to grow the scene no matter where I'm at with doing things, whether it's helping bands out or recording or playing in my band. That's kind of where my headspace is at. I will tell you right now, we've had the most success on every show that we've sold tickets to, like physical tickets, gone out and going, here's 2 tickets, you want to buy them. We did, I guess it was last year, about a year ago, the Vakken Battle, and we sold 125 tickets, I think it was. I don't remember. It was in the around a 120 area. None of the bands sold, I think, even 20 against us. And even combined, they didn't even come anywhere near us. I'm not tooting horns or anything. I'm just saying we had a great show that night. We had a massive amount of people for us that were there. Our CD release was the same thing at the Rickshaw. We did another show where we did a similar thing and sold a boatload of tickets. That has to be hand in hand with the digital end of things, the online, because you can't just rely on one and you can't just rely on the other. You got to kind of do both. Whether it's, bugging all your friends, texting your friends, like physical phone number texting, or messaging on whatever platforms that you're on, making event pages, sharing the event pages. I mean, all that stuff's got to be done. Reminding people, bugging them. I think part of the problem is bands think they're annoying people, they're bugging people. Yeah, sorry, I'm getting a ton of messages here. So is this being broadcast live? Because it's like phone's going in my pocket. I just think that when a band refuses to do like the pound the pavement stuff, whether it is hand out handbills or put up posters, I've been doing this a very long time, and I'm still one of the guys that goes out there, puts out posters, hands out handbills, sells tickets, and I have no shame about doing it. Bug my friends. Are you coming to the show? No, I can't make it up. Why aren't you coming to the show? Well, I got this going on. Okay, I'll bug you on the next one then, and I let them know. I got a few friends that actually buy tickets and don't go to shows because they want to support. Do stuff like that. Ask your friends, hey, do you want to just buy this $10 ticket? Yeah. Why? Well, I'm not going to go. Well, it helps support. If you don't go, I can actually just give those tickets to somebody and they can show up with somebody that wants to go that doesn't. You're helping support the bigger cause of it. Or that's just $10 extra that goes into the overall thing of paying off the show and making sure the bands get paid because everybody would like to get something. So there's a whole host of things I think that everybody could kind of do a little bit more. And the unfortunate thing is that there are bands that just don't want to do any of it. We've had shows where I've seen bands not even post online. It's like, are you embarrassed that you're playing? Like, what's the deal? Like, or do you not want to post? Do you not want to talk about your band? I mean, I don't think we're the best band or anything, but I'm proud of our band and I want people to know about it. You know, I'm not so what do you call it? Egotistical and self-absorbed that I think that we're the best band in Vancouver. I'm really happy with what we're doing and I'm very proud of where we've come from and to where we are now. I want people to know about it. Doesn't everybody want to do that? Like, don't you want to get your music out there and have people actually come to shows? If you don't tell people, it's not like you show up to the venue and they will come. It doesn't work like that. And you can't rely. So I always look at it as I can't rely on those other 3 or 4 bands that are on the bill to do anything. So I'm going to do it. But if they do something, it's all the better. Right? And I try to look for bands that are willing to get in the trenches and do that kind of work because it only makes for a better show for everybody. The venue owner, they're going to sell some booze. For the bands, people are going to show up. They're going to buy merch. They're going to buy a ticket. They're going to buy booze. They're going to do all these things that keeps that venue alive and keeps your band going so that you can take that money, invest it into buying more merch, putting out an album, doing all these things. It's a vicious cycle, but it's what's required. You know, it's one of those things that if you don't do it, you might as well just kind of sit at home. You know, like I just never understood a band that would never want to actually physically, verbally, whatever it is, not promote what they're doing. Just what I said last, which was get out there, talk to people. I remember having to, like, you know, riding the bus as a kid and telling people, like, I'd see somebody without a shirt and be like, they might be into metal. Here's a handbill. We're playing this show. People seem to be afraid of doing that now. It's like you see somebody that looks like they're into music, or maybe they're not, or they got headphones in, like, hey, what are you listening to? Oh, I'm listening to Eazy-E. Okay, well, maybe you might not want to come to the show. Maybe you might. I'm in a band. Would you be interested in checking it out? Like, that whole part of the communication has been lost. But I think ultimately it's come to the venue. Even if you come for a band and you spend that 10 or 15 or whatever the local door price is for that particular show, just it's $10. Come out for a band or two. Come out and support your friends. Like, don't ask to be on the guest list unless you're actually working something and it's like, you know, you're doing photography or videos or whatever. I've had friends that are like, hey, can you put me on the guest list? I'm like, and I just flat out say no. I just. Like the show at the Rickshaw we got coming up, and I as soon as it was announced, my buddy was like, hey, can you put me on the guest list? And I'm like, no, flat out, just no. I like last night's guest list was insane. Like, wow, like there had to have been 40 people, 50 people on the guest list, which would have put that show over the top. Like, literally would have put it over the top. I had some dude's dad come up to me while I was working the door last night, and like. Walks in, I'm like, $20. And the guy's like, I'm on the guest list. I'm like, okay. So I'm looking for it. I'm like, honestly, I don't see his name. And he's like, I'm blah blah blah's dad, and he just walks away, and then this other guy walks with him. I'm like, oh, okay. So promoter comes up, and I'm like, some dude he said he was from some band. He's like, they don't even have a guest list. They didn't give me a guest list, and I'm like, that's kind of what I thought. Yeah. So, if you can't support your own son for a few dollars, maybe just don't. I don't want to say don't go to the show, because more bodies in there is better, but it's like, what's $10 or $20? Come on. Anyways, I'm old and jaded.
Hey, it's James from Support the Scene. If you're interested in being interviewed or want to be featured on our channel, please comment down below or find us on Facebook and message us, and we'll get back to you as fast as we can. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Rock on.